Hello, everyone, and welcome to Omnichannel subscribers and the growing urgency to manage them better. Let's jump right into it. So, in the beginning, there was email marketing, and that became our biggest digital means of reaching our customers. It is the OG of digital marketing channels, of one-to-one marketing, and for most brands, it's huge. But then SMS marketing came along, and that supplanted email in that it became the most immediate digital means of reaching our customers. Much faster, much more interruptive, much more urgent. Um, and so when you really needed to communicate surefire, that became the go-to. Then push came along, many of the same attributes as SMS, but this is the most uh, this is the best means of reaching our mobile app customers. So you had these three channels, and as these channels grew, brands absolutely got really good at running each of them. And vendors sort of senselessly squabbled over which one was better, which is silly. At the same time, meanwhile, consumers increasingly opted into multiple channels. And so this is what we kind of ended up with at most brands. It was no longer a question of which is the best channel, but rather who are the best subscribers. And without a doubt, the best subscribers are omni-channel subscribers. They are the folks who are opted in to two or even all three of these channels. So it's the folks who are opted in to email and SMS, email and push, SMS and push, or all three. And what we found is that these omni-channel subscribers, these folks who are opted into two or more of these big three digital marketing channels, are anywhere from 2 to 9 times more engaged and more valuable than single channel subscribers. It really changes the game. So it's not really a question anymore of how well brands can manage channels, but really how well they can manage subscriber experiences across channels. And you can see here that these omni-channel subscribers are a very significant part of the mix. However, this is on sheer counts. This is sheer count of subscribers, which for most brands, depending on your maturity, depending on how long you've had these three channels, is somewhere probably in the range of like 5%, 15% of your overall mix are omni-channel subscribers. However, if you add in their buying power, if you assume on average like 4 times more valuable than a single channel subscriber, because there is a variability depending on the various combinations, and of course, everybody's individual brand, mileage is going to vary. But if we assume 4x, what you're going to probably find is that in your organization, omni-channel subscribers are suddenly your second largest group of subscribers after your email-only subscribers. That's really massive. And that probably means that you're not giving this group nearly as much attention as you should. All right, so today we're going to talk about maximizing this critically valuable audience by doing a few things, by coordinating and optimizing cross-channel messaging, by creating more omni-channel subscribers, because why wouldn't you want more of a good thing? Mitigating churn among these subscribers, because again, you want more of a good thing. And then lastly, in light of all of that, making some tweaks to your cross-channel marketing workflows to kind of better align things. For those of you who aren't familiar with me, my name is Chad White. I'm the GVP of CRM Strategy at Zeta Global. I'm also the author of the book Email Marketing Rules, which is now in its 4th edition. I am just about to celebrate 20 years in the digital marketing space, which is pretty awesome. And I formerly with Oracle and Salesforce, and way back when at Litmus. I love to connect with you at LinkedIn, on X, Mastodon, Blue Sky. You can find me at Chad S. White. For those of you who aren't familiar with Zeta Global, we are the recognized leader in the ESP space and have been for a number of years, according to fine folks at Forrester and elsewhere. And most recently, we got like the highest possible scores across 13 different criteria, including artificial intelligence, which is definitely one of our core strengths. All right, let's jump into it. Let's first talk about coordinating and optimizing cross-channel messaging. But before we do that, I do want to do a little bit of level setting on consumers' expectations with these big three channels. in terms of interruptiveness, in terms of frequency tolerance, dwell time, and conversion channel. I'm going to talk about email, SMS, and push. So first, interruptiveness. Email tends to be the least. SMS and push tend to be the most. Those are very loud channels that demand immediate attention. And that kind of corresponds, sort of the inverse is then true on frequency tolerance. Email, you see much higher frequency tolerances compared to SMS and push. And although you might think SMS and push are pretty similar, we tend to find that the tolerance for volume is a little bit higher in push than it is in SMS. In terms of dwell time, those SMS and push messages tend to be like a single call to action. RCS is changing that a little bit, but they tend to be pretty compact, a single punch, versus email, which tends to have many modules, lots more content, a bit more long form, and therefore the dwell time is higher there, even if people are just scanning their way through, which is absolutely what they do. Nobody reads email, they just scan it. And then in terms of conversion channels, email and SMS largely connected to the web, whereas push is connected to mobile apps. So some very keen differences to pay attention to as you're crafting messages. So in terms of avoiding message redundancy, we're going to talk about a few things. We're going to talk about using messaging variations on a theme across channels to reduce redundancy, having channel exclusive messages, and not hitting multiple channels at the exact same time. All right, let's first start by talking about messaging variations on a theme across channels. And I think the best way to do this is to have sort of a theoretical example. And because I'm here in Boston, which is the home of Litmus and is still very much winter here in Boston, I want to give you an example that is about a summer essential sale. So we're getting a summertime, state of mind. So you might lead off with an SMS message that was about getting early access to this sale. You might have some direct mail piece that's driving, in-store traffic with an in-store only coupon. Might have digital ads that are promoting this sale. Might have a video with an influencer talking about sun protection that you're running on social. Might have a push notification that features that influencer video. Email would then follow up talking about the sale, including a link to that video, and then also maybe talking about sunblock by skin type. You might include your loyalty members doing a sunblock usage quiz and then reward their engagement with a coupon for sunblock or for other summertime related products. You might have a flash sale you run over SMS that would promote some kind of featured summer brand that you have. And then toward the end there, talking about how the sale is going to end tomorrow via an email, and then maybe also include that loyalty sunblock quiz results, letting your email subscribers know that if they aren't already loyalty members, that they're missing out. And then you might end with a push notification talking about how the sale is going to end in 4 hours. So you can see in this example how there are absolutely some beats that are repeated, but it's not all the same note again and again and again. It's a mix. They're all related. They're all telling the same overall story, but they're hitting different notes in this song. One strategy I wanted to point out that we see quite frequently is taking a secondary message in an email campaign and turning that into a primary message in an SMS or a push campaign. We can see that here with this Derm Store email with this secondary module about Elta MD. That becomes a primary message in SMS. Also in ShopBop, see the same kind of strategy. This personalized content that's localized by geo about the Chicago pop-up shop that is then turned into an SMS message as a primary. So that's something, if you're not doing that now, something to consider. Next, let's talk about having channel exclusive messages. And here I really want to lean into how these channels are different. So I wanted to take that time up front to kind of level set on how channels are not all the same. They have different expectations, different strengths, different weaknesses. And here I want to talk about time sensitivity and how time-sensitive promotions are best left to SMS and push and less urgent ones to email. And I want to give you some examples. So for instance, for mobile, you might have something like an early access to a sale or product. That early access generally is less than 24 hours and sometimes is only like 6 hours or 8 hours or less. So that makes it much more urgent versus something in email, which might be, just that the sale is starting now. In mobile, you might have a 6-hour flash sale. Whereas an email, you wouldn't be promoting like a 3-day sale because not everyone's checking their email every single day. There's going to be some delay versus on mobile where there's a much higher propensity to see that right away. Recently saw someone promoting a 3-day flash sale. No such thing exists in this world. Flash sales are always hours, they're short. That's what makes it a flash. No such thing as a 3-day flash sale. That's ridiculous. Also, if you have a limited inventory of a particular product, those are also great candidates to go to mobile, although not so much because of the time sensitivity, but because those audiences tend to be smaller. So you're going to be less likely to be like disappointing people who then click through and can't get the product. Versus email, because that audience is larger, you tend to want to have promotions for products that are sort of well stocked. All right, let's also talk about some differences between triggers. So those were promotional campaigns. These are triggers. Let's talk about the difference between sort of high priority and sort of lower priority triggers. Those high priority triggers need to go to SMS or push, whereas those less, those lower priority ones need to go to email. And I'll give you, again, some examples. So high priorities, things like fraud prevention alerts, two-factor authentication, payment failure alerts, appointment confirmation requests and reminders, and perhaps some high-value cart abandonment. All of these things you want people to see, and you want them to see it preferably right this second. Some lower priority triggers, which are still great to do, you should absolutely do all of these. Product review requests, a return that's received and processed, a back in stock notification, a browse abandonment message, a low value cart and checkout abandonment message. Those are all, again, great things to do, fantastic things to do, but lower priority. So you don't want to be flooding those high priority channels if you have the option to send it via email. So it's a great way to differentiate this messaging. All right, I want to point out some campaigns by The Gap, which I think is like very aware of these issues. They do a good job in their subject lines of pointing out when there's like an email bonus, something exclusive, a big black banner under the header that says email exclusive, extra 20% off. They do that pretty consistently and will even sometimes extend their subject line because they have a very nice short name that they can extend their subject line and have it say Gap email exclusive, really pointing out that when a campaign is exclusive to email and when it's not. So it's nice to be able to point that stuff out. Lastly here, I want to talk about not hitting multiple channels at the same time or very close to the same time. So here are some strategies. You might have some blackout dates for certain channels. So give channels priority on certain dates. You could also do time bans if blackout dates is a little bit too crude of a tool. You can use the scalpel instead and do time bans. And you can have that for either certain channels or certain departments, depending on how you're organized. Of course, you could also establish sort of broadly speaking, a channel message hierarchy so that when for a particular message, the priority is that, for instance, it goes out via SMS, and if there's not SMS, then it goes out via email, for instance, or one that's, the priority is email, but if you don't have that, it can go out via SMS or push. So having sort of a one-size-fits-all hierarchy for a particular message for each message that you send. Of course, you could also do that at the individual level using best channel machine learning algorithms. These tools vary in how they calculate things, but it's sort of an RFM type model, sort of like the recency of engagement with a particular channel, the frequency of engagement with that channel, and the monetary value of the engagement with that channel. Everyone's going to have something different, but you can also use that to prioritize a particular message. Be cognizant that you don't always allow that sort of algorithm to always push everything into one channel. So the point is to kind of spread things out. All right, next let's talk about creating more omni-channel subscribers. Again, you want more because these are such high value subscribers. Let's talk about different opportunities during sign up, during welcome series, and during promotional campaigns. These are sort of the big three areas of opportunity. And let's start by talking about during the sign up process. So back in late 2022, I signed up for 100 major brands email marketing campaigns. And what I found was that a lot of them, or too many of them, I'll say, asked for phone numbers in addition to email addresses. And it was very confusing to know what I was getting, what I was signing up for. And these were all like homepage experiences. So it would be like, that's where it should be really buttoned up. It sort of, in many cases, look like this, not to pick on ClairV, but they have a very good example of what this process tends to be like. So you get a pop-up and it says, hey, sign up and get 15% off. So a nice like sign up incentive. 15% is like actually pretty standard. And it has a field for your email address. Now, if you put your email address into that field, you then get this additional message that says, now put in your mobile number. Now, that's not clear from the get-go that you need to sign up for email and SMS to get the 15% off. That's not explained. It's also not clear what happens if I abandon at this point. If I decide I don't want to sign up for SMS, if I don't want to give you a phone number, or I don't want to even give you a fake phone number, which obviously you don't want, it's totally unclear what happens. And so for my particular experiment, I did not sign up for SMS. And I can tell you that half the time when this scenario presented itself, I actually got emails from the brand as I wanted. And the other half, I did not. I did not get any emails. And that's sad. That's very sad. It's sad for the consumer because they wanted to get emails. And it's sad for the brand who's now missing out on a subscriber. So that's not good. So it's not good for anybody. And I will say that that scenario is still very prevalent today. I redid that experiment last year and still saw quite a few brands doing that same confusing process. All right, next let's talk about during the welcome. So here, and it kind of makes a lot of sense, very few brands are promoting other channels during an email sign up. The exception here is sort of a soft promo for push notifications because a lot of brands are pushing their mobile app, which makes sense. And obviously, if you get a download on your mobile app, then you get that opportunity to get that push notification opt-in. So this is the primary way during a welcome series that you can try to get additional opt-ins. In promo messages is where there's the most opportunity, I would say. This is into the relationship some. You've had a chance to kind of like prove that you're going to send helpful, valuable content. In terms of mobile, what we tend to see on the push side of things is still a lot of like app exclusives or app only deals. So again, that gets folks downloading the mobile app, and then you get that opportunity for that push notification opt-in. You also see some brands, pushing SMS opt-ins sort of increasingly. I will say that a lot of the push here is on that sign-up incentive, which is like pretty universal. It's almost always a pretty sizable sign-up incentive. I will say what's less good is that a lot of times, and I think this is a pretty good example here from Michael's, they talk about what you're going to get. And I often find myself thinking, aren't I already getting all of those things via email? Aren't I already learning about big sales and events? Aren't I already getting, offers, information about products, updates on my online orders? Aren't I already getting all those things? So it tells me that some brands aren't super clear on what their channel differentiation strategy is because they're not doing a very good job of articulating it. So something to be mindful of. So here I want to highlight some learnings. I think first one is that you should keep your channel signups, your CTAs and your forms separate to avoid confusion. It is not very likely you're going to get someone from the get-go to sign up for SMS and email at the same time, or put like getting multiple signups at one time is like that's a super fan already, and it's hard to already have like a super fan without having any of those promo signups. So take it one channel at a time. For pop-ups, lead with the channel that your customers generally like the best. And you can vary that by subscription source, by sign-up source. So it could be that email performs better as a default sign up on your homepage, but maybe SMS performs better as a default sign up, on social. Whatever it might be, do some testing. Of course, over time, again, as you kind of prove out the value of your promotional messaging, you can then have signups that function dynamically based on opt-in status. So when someone signs up for email and then returns, many months later to your homepage, that's a happy subscriber. They're still subscribed. You can then pitch them on signing up for SMS messages as well, because through cookies that they're already signed up for email, so you don't need to show them the email sign up again. That's a smart way to do it. The other thing that is very much worth mentioning is that all of the love here tends to flow from email to other channels. It was very strange that it's very hard to find examples of SMS campaigns or push notifications that are promoting email signups. It's always email that's promoting SMS and push, which to me doesn't seem right. You're absolutely going to have folks who are just opted into SMS or just opted into push. Why wouldn't you also want them to sign up for email? So I think that's a huge opportunity that I think a lot of brands are ignoring. All right, next let's talk about mitigating churn among these omnichannel subscribers. And again, these are really, really valuable. These are like best customers, right? You absolutely want to pay more attention to these folks because everyone that churns is worth 2 or 4 or 6 of your other single channel subscribers. So you should be paying more attention to these folks, just like hopefully you're also paying attention to like your best customers who are opted into email and making sure that those folks have a really good experience and you're not churning them out. Now here, I have some recommendations in a minute, but I think that the best thing to do in this situation is always to start with a bit of analysis to try to understand what's happening at your brand. So for instance, when an omnichannel subscriber is opting out of one channel, how often are they opting out of additional channels? How often is that first opt out like just the first in a domino of opt outs? And how often do they opt out of all the channels they're subscribed to? So if you have among your subscribers that are opted into the three bigs, when they opt out, what's the propensity for them to opt out of all of them? Try to understand that. Also try to understand, what's the channel that tends to cause that sort of domino effect of opt-outs. That's very valuable intel to have because if SMS is frustrating them, if email is frustrating them, if you can address that, then you can keep them as a subscriber. So being able to understand what's that final straw is very important and can allow you to make some adjustments. As much as possible, try to identify some root causes. And I know we don't do this a whole lot, but you might want to talk to some of these folks, identify these folks who have opted out of multiple channels, all around the same time and ask them, try to get in contact with them and ask them, hey, what happened? Why did you opt out? What were you frustrated by? There's a bunch of reasons that we can't remedy. Lots of reasons why people opt out. They age out of your products, they move, so they're no longer close to a store, or whatever it might be. There's all kinds of reasons that we can't address, but there are a bunch that we can. So it's good to try to figure these things out, again, especially since these are very, very important subscribers. All right, so now beyond that sort of analysis, I want to talk about some other mitigation strategies that you can kind of use across the board. And the first is paying attention that when you have customer service incidents, when bad things happen, a delay in a delivery, especially a substantial one, a 1-star product review gets submitted, a flight cancellation, and then snoozing all the channels, all the promotional channels for that customer is smart, because we know that when, for instance, somebody's flight is canceled and the airline is then sending them promotional emails, it is tone deaf and they get mad and they will rage unsubscribe or rage, spam complaint. And you don't want that to happen either. So recognizing these incidents when they occur and doing a snooze, letting the customer cool down and recover from the frustration of whatever that experience was is very wise. Also, if you're offering sort of topic-based snoozes, honor those across all the channels that someone's opted into. So if you're giving folks an opportunity to snooze or opt out of Mother's Day messaging or Father's Day messaging or Grandparents' Day messaging or whatever it might be that's sensitive, don't make them opt out of that in email and push and SMS, like wherever they opt out of it first, allow that to kind of stand across all channels. And then more broadly, really trying to look at sort of conversion-based or holistic, inactivity management across channels, especially as channel visibility declines, I guess particularly, unfortunately, in the email space. But even before mail privacy protection came along, what you should have been doing with a really fantastic high-value customer is ignoring. If you don't see them engaging with your emails, you should have ignored that because there's all kinds of ways they could have been engaging that would be invisible, right? They could have just been looking at your envelope content and maybe not opening them, but that envelope content could have been, influencing their purchase decisions. They could be, converting offline. Also, people blocking images. They could be reading those emails with images blocked and you would not see an open. And so even way back then, pre-MPP, you should have been kind of paying attention to is this a good customer? Great, let's not stop sending them email just because we're not seeing email activity. The same kind of work that we did then, we need to now kind of apply across all these other channels that are now at our disposal, taking a much more holistic, sort of customer-centric view of that. All right, lastly, I want to talk about tweaking cross-channel marketing workflows. So omnichannel success requires reorienting around the customer and not around channels, which is how most organizations are absolutely orientated, is around channels. So we're going to talk about managing customer experiences, not managing channels. We're going to talk about collaborating on cross-channel messaging and assets. And then lastly, doing some alignment around analytics. So traditionally speaking about a multi-channel approach is that everything starts with the brand and then it gets pushed down into channels. And that's the old style of thinking. The omni-channel way of thinking is that to orientate everything with the customer at the center. So regardless of how many channels you have, it's always rotating around the customer. They're at the middle and they're interacting across all these channels that are around them. So you got to change your mindset and how you think about your channels. Doing that, it opens up some cross-channel collaboration opportunities, such as having designers, copywriters, and strategists all working across channels. So not siloed, but working across channels. That allows them to align their goals. Again, put the customer, put the subscriber at the center of everything that they're doing. So rather than trying to optimize what's going on a channel, you're now trying to optimize that experience for the subscriber. And then also allows you to coordinate more smoothly around messaging and imagery and CTAs. Also allows you to share A/B test results across channels. If you have a really great, SMS subject line, you should be using that in email as well, or at least testing it. So sharing these learnings across or cross-pollinating is really wise. And then lastly, reorientating this way also allows you to do what is almost rarely done today, which is to run truly omni-channel tests, A/B tests, where you look at your subscribers who are opted in to email and SMS, for instance, and do tests among that audience to see what is the best order of messaging and if we have this combination, this A message and this B message in a different channel, how do those things work together? Now let's try the B and the A. Doing that kind of testing, which is largely unheard of today in most organizations, that's a big opportunity to lean into. And then lastly, aligning your analytics around your customers means shifting to customer-centric metrics away from channel-centric metrics. So instead of looking at just channel opt-ins, looking at the growth of your active audiences, going from channel engagement to omni-channel engagement. Again, that recenters it on the customer, on the subscriber. Instead of looking at revenue per campaign, which is an endemic way of thinking. And it's not to say that you shouldn't look at revenue per campaign or any of these other things, but you should also be doing the customer-centric market as well. So things like revenue per subscriber or customer lifetime value. So again, it's not an either or, but it's about adding those on the right, because those are important. And Haley, during her presentation, talked about how we over-index on things that are easy to measure, and that is 100% true. We spend a lot of time looking at the things that are easy to measure and ignoring or downplaying the things that are difficult to measure. But even doing a poor job of measuring some of these other things, like customer lifetime value, is not super easy to calculate. Doing an okay job of that is still vastly superior to not looking at it at all. So I would encourage you to lean into proxies, lean into, hey, we think this is 80% accurate. Don't get turned off by needing something to be absolutely perfect before you use it. All right, now just a quick recap to close things out. So first of all, I encourage all of you to try to go back to your organization and understand the size and impact of your omnichannel audience. If you have not done these calculations, and you probably haven't, need to do them so you can try to have a better understanding of how big these audiences are that you're probably not paying a lot of attention to. Then try to develop that cross-channel messaging content strategy, focus on growing your omni-channel subscriber base and not letting them churn out. And then lastly, very much embracing an omni-channel workflow. I think 5 years from now, all major organizations are going to be embracing this kind of approach, and you're not going to have, well, you still have channel specialists for sure. The organization is going to be much more of an omni-channel sort of approach. And with that, I thank you very much.